What if Anakin was trained by Mace Windu? In the main Star Wars timeline, Obi-Wan takes Anakin as an apprentice in order to honor the final wishes of Qui-Gon Jinn. However, one of our viewers wondered what if instead Anakin was trained by Mace Windu, the master who never trusted him. That's the story that we'll be hopping into today. So find your warmest cup of caf, cuddle up beside your pet porg, and let's dive right into this video. Our story begins in the Jedi Council chambers following the events on Naboo. There, Obi-Wan makes his case to the Council as to why he should be training Anakin, which they carefully consider. However, they still see Kenobi as too young and inexperienced to be given a Padawan, especially one who is old and harbors previous attachments. The Council doesn't want to get rid of Anakin though. They sense his ability in the Force, and they don't want that to go to waste. After all, his midi-chlorian count had been higher than Master Yoda's. Perhaps he truly was the prophesied chosen one that would bring balance to the Force. Who would be the best to train him, though? After much deliberation, the Council comes to a decision. Because of his experience as a Jedi, and his mastery of channeling both the light and dark sides of the Force during combat, the Council decides that Mace Windu would be an exceptional mentor for Anakin, especially since the young boy has the possibility to drift into darker patterns. When they call Anakin and Obi-Wan back to the Council chambers and tell them this, both are slightly dismayed. However, they're still committed to remaining friends, and Obi-Wan tells Anakin that Mace Windu is a very powerful master. How does this change contribute to the story going forward? There are some wild changes to the timeline, so let's keep going and find out. The next day, Anakin begins his training with Mace Windu. Mace had never had a Padawan, and it showed. At first, Mace is incredibly hard on Anakin. He's dogmatic, and whenever Anakin fails, he chastises the young Jedi for not immediately getting a handle on the material. Anakin becomes frustrated, and he often lashes out at his master when he feels like he isn't progressing quickly enough. Mace, while adept in the Force, clearly isn't as skilled of a teacher as the Council believed him to be. Mace goes to Yoda in private one day and confides in him about his lack of success with the young Padawan. Yoda explains to him that being a teacher is not easy, and that it is a unique challenge in the Force, specifically for Mace. He tells Mace to try and be more understanding with the boy, and to try and learn his interests. Rather than pressure Anakin to conform to his style, instead, Yoda says that Mace should guide him on his own personal journey. Yoda advises Mace to be a gentle hand rather than a firm fist, and he tells him that he should only dictate Anakin's path if he begins to drift away from the ways of the Jedi. Mace takes this to heart, and he apologizes to Anakin the next time he sees him. Anakin appreciates this, and he says that he accepts Mace's apology. Anakin, in turn, says sorry to his master for lashing out, and he promises to better control his emotions in the future. Mace says that he will teach him how to do that in due time. First, though, Windu says that it's time for the two of them to do something that the young Jedi would find fun. Anakin is excited, asking Mace what it is. However, the Master keeps it a secret, saying only that he knows that Anakin will enjoy it. The pair go on a little adventure to Malastare, where Mace takes Anakin to watch a pod race on their famous racing track. Anakin is enthralled, as he had always wanted to see a race here in person. He asks Master Windu how he had known about this desire to pod race. Mace says that he remembers that Anakin had caught the eye of Qui-Gon Jinn with that pod racing prowess, and he wanted to reinvigorate that passion within his Padawan. Mace tells Anakin that he wants Anakin to pursue his interests, and that he doesn't want to constrict his path any longer. This was Windu's attempt to show Anakin that he truly cared, and that he cared about his interests. After this fun excursion, because Anakin had been inducted late into the Order, it becomes time for him to build his own lightsaber. Anakin is very excited, and he's looking forward to this rite of passage in the Order. Mace takes him to Ilum, where he meets with Hu Yang, and he drops Anakin off with the droid, telling them that he hoped the Force would guide his path. Mace departs for Coruscant, and Hu Yang drops Anakin off on the surface of Ilum, stating that he'll be waiting for the young Jedi when he found his crystal. Anakin enters the Ilum cave, and he begins to wander, allowing the Force to guide him. He follows his inmost senses, hearing the crystals humming to him, and he finds himself deep in the heart of the cave. His mind feels inclined to pull out a very specific crystal, one that is the same color as his master's, purple. Anakin takes it, pleased to have finally found the heart of his future lightsaber, and he goes back to Hu Yang, proud of himself. On his way back to Coruscant, he builds his lightsaber with the guidance of the droid. It ends up looking exactly like the one he uses in the main timeline, but it has a purple blade rather than a blue one. When Hu Yang takes Anakin back to Mace, his master expresses pride in his apprentice for building this lightsaber, telling him that he's now officially part of the Ancient Order. Anakin and Mace continue to train together over the years. Mace teaches Anakin about the pod, and he shows him how to channel the negative emotions of his opponents into a force that can be used against them. Anakin struggles with this initially, and Mace often senses Anakin's desire to give into his own darker feelings as an easier way out. However, during these moments, Mace softly guides Anakin in the ways of self-control and moderation that the Jedi strive towards. He teaches Anakin that although it may seem easier to simply use the dark side, that didn't mean that it was right. Sometimes the more difficult path would lead to more self-growth than the one with ease. There are still occasional tensions between Anakin and Mace that flare up, however they're able to resolve them. Mace is still dogmatic, and he has a personality that clashes with one of his young Padawan, who is constantly questioning the way that things are done. As the events of Attack of the Clones begin to play out, and as Padme ends up having the attempt on her life taking place, the Jedi Council believes that Mace and Anakin would be up to the task of protecting her. In this scenario, Mace and Anakin remain logical when Zam Wesell's assassin droid plants the worms in Padme's room. Instead of jumping onto the droid and shattering Padme's window, as Obi-Wan did in Attack of the Clones, Mace throws a tracker onto the droid before leaving the apartment and finding a nearby speeder with which to follow it. The two are once again led to Zam, and they end up discovering the Kamino saber dart which Jango uses to kill Zam. Windu consults Obi-Wan about the dart, and he sends Windu to Dexter's diner for more information. While Mace Windu engages with his hunt for Jango, the Council still authorizes Anakin be placed with Padme on Naboo for protection. Windu, who sensed his Padawan's attraction to the young senator when they had met with her earlier, is opposed to this idea. However, the Council convinces Windu that it would be a good trial for the young Jedi to see if he would truly uphold the code during trying times. Until Geonosis, events proceed in much the same way that they do during Attack of the Clones. Mace discovers the clones, and he actually manages to defeat Jango Fett in this scenario on Kamino due to his control and experience with the Force. At this time, he is older than Obi-Wan, and his mastery of the pod allows him to use Jango's negative emotions of fear and anger against him. Boba Fett pilots the Slave One away from Kamino, following the instructions from his father to leave and get to safety. From here, Windu manages to extract information regarding Dooku's last known location, which was Geonosis, along with details about his meetings with separatist leaders across the planet. Rather than go straight up to Geonosis like Obi-Wan did in Attack of the Clones, Mace Windu calls for a pickup from a Republic prison vessel that's nearby in the Outer Rim, because him and Jango won't both fit in his little interceptor. Upon pickup, Jango is thrown into a high-security cell, and Mace goes back to the Republic with the information that he's received from the bounty hunter. Meanwhile, on Naboo, Anakin remains committed to his Jedi ways. Despite his attraction to Padme, and following some mild flirtation between the two, it seems that some of Mace's dogma has actually rubbed off on Anakin. While he is still slightly rebellious, his master had instilled much more of a sense of duty in the young Padawan, and he's also been stricter on Anakin's outbursts than Obi-Wan was in the main timeline. Because of the greater age distance between the two, Anakin finds it easier to see Mace as a father figure, rather than as an older brother, like he did with Obi-Wan. In addition, Obi-Wan still has a large influence on Anakin's life, but is more of a brotherly mentor than a master. Obi-Wan had told Anakin about his experiences with Duchess Satine, and how he had remained true to the Jedi Code, even though he had wanted in his heart to be with her. Anakin took this story to heart, and he tells Padme that he couldn't do anything that would jeopardize his position within the Order, nor his newly found peace within himself. In this timeline, on that same principle, Anakin also doesn't act on his dreams about Shmi. He sees them as tests, distractions from finding inner balance as a Jedi apprentice. Padme respects this, and although she's hurt, she says that her duty to the Senate also comes above romantic connections. Anakin is called back to Coruscant on short notice, along with Padme. When he arrives, it is still important that he guards Padme, and it is also deemed necessary that both of them be in the presence of the Senate for Mace's address regarding the events on Kamino. When Anakin and Padme arrive in the Senate chamber, Windu is already detailing the plans that Jango informed him of, and he lets the Senate know about the clone army. He says that it is imperative the Republic strike now, and that Dooku be arrested with the utmost speed for his treason against the Republic. Mace is advocating for decisive military action, and in this timeline, there is no need for Jar Jar to request that the Senate grant Palpatine emergency powers, because Mace does so instead. He believes that the Chancellor must be authorized to immediately permit a strike against the Separatists, along with the mobilization of the clones, because there is a limited window in which they can strike against Dooku's council. Of course, given this reasoning, the Senate votes to approve this action, Padme included. While she's a pacifist in most situations, she also believes in the unity of the Republic, and she believes that a decisive strike now would prevent a prolonged war later on. She also trusts Palpatine, having known him since the beginning of her political career to be a good man with the best interests of the galaxy at heart. So, the masterful politician gives his notorious speech about his love for democracy and for the Republic, and he immediately authorizes the deployment of the clones to Geonosis in order to capture Dooku and dismantle the Separatist Conference at its roots. He also says that the Keepers of the Peace, the Jedi, would be the ones leading this new army into battle, just like in the movie. Following the conference in the Senate, Mace finds his Padawan and informs him that they will be departing for Geonosis together. He tells Padme that she will be placed under the watchful eye of the Republic Guard in their absence, a privilege that was normally reserved for Palpatine himself. However, under these dire circumstances, the Chancellor is authorized to give some of his guards to Senator Amidala, especially because he cares for her as an old friend, at least to the naked eye. Captain Typho also maintains a security contingent from Naboo around Padme, and it is decided that she is suitably safe. Anakin departs Geonosis with Mace and most of the other members of the Jedi Order, saying goodbye to Padme with mixed emotions in his heart. While he had overcome his desire for her, it still exists within him, and he feels poorly about leaving her. Mace senses this confusion in his Padawan, and he tells Anakin that he's made the right choice. Their path is not an easy one, but it was necessary nonetheless. Their place of privilege in the Force came with responsibilities as well. Soon, the Jedi Order would be at Geonosis. Then, all of the buildup from tensions that had been rising within galactic politics for years would come crashing down. Soon, Anakin and Mace would be at the center of everything. As soon as the Republic forces arrive on Geonosis, they are met with resistance. A massive contingent of Trade Federation ships are in the sky, along with their infamous Vulture droid protectors. Mace is confused, as it seems that the Separatists had been prepared for this attack. How could they have possibly known? That was a question for another time. A battle ensues between the clone pilots and those of the droid forces, and Anakin takes pleasure in joining in. He had maintained his love of flying over the years, especially after that pod race that he had gone to with Mace, and he'd often teased Obi-Wan about his distaste for it. Anakin leads a squad of clones into battle, and they successfully break through the Trade Federation blockade. Similarly to how Anakin destroyed the droid control ship in The Phantom Menace, he once again leads his clone pilots into the heart of one of the Lucre Hulk-class ships blockading Geonosis, and he destroys it from the inside out. He makes it out with his snazzy piloting skills, and his clones also manage to escape the ensuing explosion. From here, due to the hole in Separatist forces, the Republic is able to land their forces on the surface of Geonosis, beginning the ground assault of the battle. At this moment, Anakin leads his clones through the hole that's opened up to help provide support to his master on the ground. Mace, as he's traveling in a gunship with Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Kit Fisto, spot Count Dooku attempting to flee the planet on his speeder bike. Mace orders that the gunship follow the speeder, and the pursuit of Dooku begins. Anakin continues to fly through the sky with his clone pilots, destroying droids on the ground. The group swerves through the incoming onslaught of Vulture droids that comes to counter their support, and they destroy many of them. Sadly, some of the clone pilots are also blown up, and Anakin loses a few of his squad mates. Anakin receives a new directive from the naval commanders in the sky, telling him to go for the main droid factory, where it seems like many of the Separatist leaders are still hiding out. Some Y-Wing bombers are sent Anakin's way, and the naval officers tell him that he can take out the droid factory, and they could hit two birds with one stone. The Separatist officials that had signed the treaty would be taken out, and so would this massive droid factory. So Anakin does as he's instructed. He commands his pilots to follow, and they begin to maneuver meticulously through the skies of Geonosis. They're met with heavy resistance from the Separatists, and Anakin finds himself dodging blasts of both forces on the ground and in the sky. Many of his pilots fall, and Anakin feels each of their lives being extinguished in the Force. In that same breath, though, he stays focused. His Y-Wings remain strong, and eventually, the squadron makes it to what has been identified to contain the droid factory. Here, though, this is when Anakin is met with his greatest challenge. Boba Fett, who had come to Geonosis seeking safety with the Separatists, now sees Anakin, and he is thirsty for revenge. He takes the Slave One into the sky and begins piloting it through the massive horde of clone and droid ships. He hones in on Anakin's starfighter and begins blasting. The two engage in a meticulous dance in the skies, and eventually, Anakin, with his superior piloting skills and older age, manages to take down the Slave One. Boba Fett crash lands, and he survives, but he's heavily injured on the sands of Geonosis. After this altercation, Anakin commands that his bombers drop their bombs on the factory, and they conduct a successful bombing run of their target, destroying the droid factory and taking out the corporate leaders who were going to support the Separatists. Meanwhile, the gunship with the contingent of Jedi Masters continues to follow Dooku until he reaches his hangar. They land in the hangar after Dooku, and a small platoon of clone troopers comes out of the doors following the Jedi. They surround Dooku, and Mace tells him that the party is over. He recommends that Dooku surrender, to which the Sith Lord simply responds with a sly smile. He ignites his blade, and that seems to be a cue. Out from the shadows emerges a group of B-2 super battle droids. The clones take care of them, allowing for the Masters to engage Dooku. While he is a renowned duelist, Dooku has an extremely difficult time defending himself against a combined mastery of 4 Jedi. Mace Windu uses a pod, allowing for Dooku to become even more fatigued than he normally would be when he was fighting. While he battles well, and he holds up better than most others would in his situation, he still ends up being defeated by the Jedi contingent. When he is disarmed by the Jedi, he acknowledges his defeat, and he surrenders. The clones, who had been dealing with Dooku's group of B-2 protectors, surround the Separatist leader and handcuff him, taking him as a prisoner of the Republic. Dooku's capture by the Republic sends waves through the galaxy, along with the targeted bombings of the Separatist Corporate Council by Anakin's team. When the Holonews catches wind of these events, the paparazzi are all over Dooku when he arrives on Coruscant. When Dooku's imprisoned in a max security cell, Palpatine goes to visit him. He tells the guards to leave them, since Dooku couldn't hurt him while he was locked up like this, with no weapons. He then tells Dooku that he has a plan to get him out of jail, and to not tell anything to the Republic about their plan when he's put on trial. Dooku has faith in his master at his first mistake, and he agrees. Soon after, Palpatine covertly hires Cad Bane to break into the prison, specifically to Dooku's cell. Before the Republic can even place Dooku on trial before the courts, Bane puts a laser through the Sith's chest before stealthily escaping the prison. The next day, Dooku is found dead in his cell, and he is mourned by many of the idealists that he inspired. The death of so many high-ranking corporate leaders at once puts the galactic economy into disarray. The large corporations have significant drops in their share prices, especially within Republic systems, due to both the chaos that consumes their leadership and the fact that they have been proven to be colluding with Separatists. The once powerful galactic monopolies, while still maintaining a firm grip on their sectors of the market, begin to see increased competition return to their fields. People stop trusting them, and they realize that they can start their own businesses that others will shop at. Despite being less profitable than the megacorporations, the little guys still manage to squeeze in with the new markets, and the free economy starts to once again become, well, free. Some Separatist holdouts still remain. In the absence of Dooku, Senator Mina Bonteri steps up to become a leading voice in the Confederacy government. She still maintains that she seeks independence from the Republic, even though she wishes that it could be done peacefully, and she tells the galaxy that now it was clear that wouldn't be possible. Dooku had been assassinated, probably by Republic agents, and a peaceful political gathering on Geonosis had been disrupted by a supposedly demilitarized Republic. Mina calls all systems that believed in their cause to arms, and she says that she will continue to advocate for the production of battle droids to counter Republic aggression. Palpatine uses this as an excuse to justify and prolong his war, slowly consolidating more and more power within the government. The Jedi become unwilling instruments of his will, and they slowly shift from keepers of the peace into hardened warriors. This polarizes many Republic citizens. Some of them are happy as the Jedi have stepped up to protect them. Others, who are incredibly anti-war, feel increasingly as though the Jedi are growing too powerful in the government, a sentiment that will continue later on as well. Padme continues to advocate for a ceasefire in the Senate, and she also fights against increased militarization with Mon Mothma and Bail Organa. Sadly, she was always outvoted by the nationalistic senators that wanted to win this war. Anakin and Mace become renowned heroes of the Republic. Their actions on Geonosis become tales worthy for the songs of Mandalore, and they're both seen as media darlings. Anakin is promoted to Knight, and he is tasked with training Ahsoka. Anakin turns on the charm for the cameras, expressing some of his more unorthodox Jedi personality style. He and Mace are often shown together, the master and apprentice duo that helped save the Republic. Mace remains stoic, and Anakin often pokes fun at him on the holonews, resulting in more positive press for the military effort and for the Jedi Order. How do these events impact the rest of our story? Let's find out. Eventually, due to the unity within the Republic and the disarray that the initial shock of the Republic victory on Geonosis caused the Separatists, Palpatine's Grand Army succeeds in forcing the Confederacy to surrender. Palpatine, due to his victory, is seen as an incredibly popular and respected figure across the galaxy. He easily wins another term in the Senate. He begins to propose legislation there that would create more of an authoritative executive branch as to prevent such conflicts from breaking out again. He also expands the military, soon accepting both clones and volunteers into the training system. Kamino remains a base for training, and while Palpatine still calls his government a republic, it is an empire in all but name. He begins a campaign of military expansion to new zones of the galaxy, such as Hutt Space and Wild Space, and signs off on granting more powers to the military and regional police forces in the name of stopping crime, like Maul's Shadow Collective. He also phases out Jedi as military leaders, replacing them with seasoned officers such as Tarkin and Yularen, who train the next generation of military leadership. This is seen as a positive by many of the citizens of the Republic, who started to see the Jedi as more militaristic and theocratic than at the start of the war. Some even start to believe that the Jedi were planning to take over the Republic, a sentiment that Chancellor Palpatine would expand upon later. He uses rhetoric to try and subtly depose the Jedi from the public perception of being these great, idealized, powerful people. Palpatine, because of Mace's training, has been unsuccessful in grooming Anakin, though. In addition, Anakin also has Ahsoka still in this timeline, who doesn't leave the Order because of the smaller-scale nature of the Clone Wars. It doesn't quite make its way to Coruscant, and there is no terrorist attack on the Temple. Palpatine bides his time, waiting for the move that he knew would come soon from the Jedi Council. Eventually, he believed that they would become impatient, especially with all of this rhetoric from citizens that was starting to paint them in a negative light, and he knew that they would try to remove him from office. It's only a matter of time for the patient Sith Lord. The galaxy is at peace. Palpatine retains power, and he is loved by his population. Anakin and Mace remain beloved figures in the eyes of the public despite all of the negativity towards the Jedi from the war, and Anakin never turns to the dark side. Things appear to be going well for everyone. However, sometimes, not everything is as it seems. Hello there, everyone. I hope you enjoyed today's What If video. If you did, I'm sure that you'd love this other video, What If Mr. Beast Took on Jabba the Hutt? If you have any thoughts on this story, please leave them in the comments. Would you like to see a part 2? What do you think would happen next? Have an incredible rest of your day, fellow Star Wars fans, and as always, I hope that you've had your daily, delicious dose of Bantha Stew.